I'm Kibble-White. I'm a TV journalist, a would-be animator, a should-be repentant former reviewer for Doctor Who magazine, and a gossip. The story I've selected is Sleep No More, written by Mark Gatiss and directed by Justin Molotnikov. It's one of the greatest Doctor Who stories ever. I know there's ill feeling towards it in fandom, but I can't see a single thing wrong with it. And besides, fandom is hardly Ofcom, so I don't care. Yes, I was initially resistant when I learned the story was going to be presented as found footage. A good 10 years after that cinematic conceit felt at all vital. But in fact, what it does with that notion is present a Doctor Who story from the inside out. I also like the fact that baddie Gagan Rasmussen obviously provided something of an inspiration to Matthew Sweet the next time he was in Specsavers. Anyway, here's an edit point for Toby. You must not watch this, says Gagan, which is such an audacious call to action for a TV show. You can't not after that. And throughout he's very good company. His role changes over the 45 minutes from some innocent in peril who seems to represent what the stakes are in the story to a smart-ass dad watching along with you at home. Specifically the bit where he points out that his character couldn't have died if he's here narrating it all to you. And finally to a Zaroff level baddie who's got one over on the Doctor and made you a patsy in his plans. The scene where we first come across the Doctor and Clara represents a lot that's clever about Sleep No More. This is a story that's giving the show a run out on a different set of rails, and so we meet the Doctor and Clara as strangers, rather than in our usual role as their complicit, silent companion. First we hear their conversation floating down a corridor, then we see her from the back, and finally him. They're not given their usual hero shots, no imbued stature, no definitive take on what's happening. It makes it all the more enjoyable when they still rise to dominate proceedings, an affirmation that the Time Lord doesn't need an editorial advantage. After Clara is released from the Morpheus machine, viewers, and particularly smart-ass Dad, might realise that we're now seeing some of the action from her point of view. Upon first watching, I'll confess I put it down to directorial pragmatism. Certain shots were required, so they were letting the logic of the POV thing hang a little loose. But it's not. This is a clue. It's a plot point. It's eventually made clear that this is an indication that something has changed. It's the kind of thing Rasmussen was counselling us to look out for at the very start. We'll get it again with those on-screen glitches. In this way, Sleep No More is a game, engaging with us in a fashion that's wholly unlike other Doctor Who. He had a theory, says Rasmussen, referring to the Doctor's cogitations on what the Sandmen might be. His thoughts that the monsters developed from sleep gunk and never once stood up. In the same way, when the space station's gravity shields go down, he claims he's in charge. And seeing him from inside the story, that just seems ridiculous. It makes you wonder how many other Doctor Who adventures have rested unquestionably on the lead character's summations. The hokum that they've spun that's never challenged or exposed to any rigour. As the Doctor and Clara make their escape, having achieved nothing other than getting from point A to point B and back to point A again, he has a small moment of insight, pondering that everything they've just experienced was almost all for effect, like it was a story. I particularly love that moment, having the Doctor experience the guest character's lot in every other Doctor Who tale. He's bundled in, he has no agency, and he doesn't get access to the overall plot, because for once it's not the Doctor's show. If Sleep No More did have a traditional opening title sequence, it would have been fitting to give the big 3D font to Reece Shearsmith. Well, thank you, Toby, for letting me come into your podcast and spread my spores among your listeners. I've enjoyed it, although it's been tiring. Maybe time for a nap.